the second half of the Ascendant heroes that I can see coming. Picking one from each game in Fire Emblem Heroes. If you haven't seen the first part, I'll put the link in the description so that you can check that out. If you're here, you've probably seen the first part, and I don't need to do that same introduction, so with that out of the way, starting from Fire Emblem 8 or Fire Emblem Sacred Stones, because I know using the numbers isn't the best way to talk about them for everyone, so sorry that I fell into that habit. For Fire Emblem Sacred Stones, which is Fire Emblem 8, I picked La Rochelle. She's a fun character, a potential spouse to Ephraim, but more interestingly, has her own kingdom that she can use with her own royal court that everyone kind of loves. Either direction they choose to go, or if they choose to kind of hide it, I think she's a character that people would love to see in the Ascendant form. But honestly, the main reason I'm picking her, because I would have said she would be a legendary hero, but Joshua got an Ascendant hero in his kingly garb from post-game, so La Rochelle and queenly garb kind of matches that perfectly. And again, they don't need to touch her relationship with Ephraim. They can literally just have her completely talking about who she is as queen, what she does as queen of her territory, and that doesn't at all have to detract or rely on Ephraim at all. So, as I always like to point out with characters who can be paired up, they don't have to lean into that trope or into that relationship at all. Alright, so for Fire Emblem 9, I sort of have Legu's bias because there aren't many Legus who I can see being a legendary hero. They're pretty great characters overall. So I'm thinking this would be Ranulf or Leith. Ranulf has a little bit more in the actual story, but Leith I think sells a little bit better, which is almost just as important. Both have supports with Ike and Path of Radiance. Ranulf does in Radiant Dawn, and Leith has cut ones in Radiant Dawn. And then Ranulf has a paired ending with Ike in Radiant Dawn, and Leith might have a cut one. So either one can focus on the main character. Like, they both have a relationship with him in some way. For Leith, they could just give us what those supports would have been, and for Ranulf, they can act like, they happened in this time. Either one they do, I think it's going to be a similar theme of retelling us their supports from 9 and 10, or showing us their supports from 10 if we haven't seen them. But because I said I'd pick a guess, I'm sticking with Leith. I think she's going to be from, I want to say Galia, but geography's hard for me in real life. Very difficult for me in fantasy games. But I want to say Galia. And she probably settled down there, started teaching others in combat and protecting her tribe. She was always a very powerful fighter. Maybe during Ike's many journeys after he sailed off, or before he sailed off, he helped her fight and he promised her he'd be her sparring partner. So maybe she tells us stories about back when she and Ike used to spar. Maybe she tells us about how long he stayed, or when he left, or what he did, or whatever. Either way, I think that she can pull on the fact that she has that relationship with Ike, that close friendship. Alright, and then for Fire Emblem 10, I wanted to focus on somebody more closely tied to Kaya's route. And for that, I'm picking Peleus. I mean, he's a non-royal person in a very royal role. Thinks he is a royal, and he carries this heavy weight on him. And as many people know, he dies in Fire Emblem 10, but can actually be saved in New Game Plus. I think that's kind of right up the Ascendant alley. We could have a form of Peleus that comes back and has shattered his blood pact. And that would just be so triumphant, I think, to see Peleus in this new, you can use his Archbishop design and give him just these crazy cool dark magic spells. There are more important characters like Soth or Soniki, but more important characters like that should be legendaries, not Ascendants. Peleus might lack in the popularity that being an Ascendant is implied to have, but he was popular enough to get in as the GHB of a Brave banner. So I think that has to mean something, and for that reason, I think he could eventually get an Ascendant hero. Really, when I think of Ascendant, the title, it just feels most like Peleus coming back in New Game Plus. That feeling that I got in that moment, to me, is what that makes me think of. So I could be clouding my judgment because of that, but I really do think I see him coming in. Alright, for Awakening, I am picking Olivia as who I think could be an Ascendant hero. We have yet to see a dancing Ascendant hero, and we don't really have very many dancing legendary heroes, a few mythics because of the fairy OCs, but I think she could be really cool. And historically speaking, both Fire Emblem Warriors and Fire Emblem Heroes have given nods to Chrom and Olivia's relationship, and more importantly, Fire Emblem Heroes has done things where they directly say this is only true for this timeline. We see the Day of Devotion banner. Chrom confirms that in his timeline, Robin is a man, the Chrom from Day of Devotion. So obviously, this Robin is not from his timeline, and he meets her anyway, right? Marth, the basic Marth and the basic Chris in the game, in the Forging Bonds, Marth confirmed that Chris is a man in his timeline, and they do things like that. Seth has confirmed that his mom is Aranis. So I don't think it would be off-brand for them with how much they've already given Chrom and Olivia, and how much they've already gone out of their way to show, like, no, timelines are specific, and this Olivia, I think, will be married to Chrom, and she'll be, like, the dancing queen, just because I can't pass up the title. And that's not going to mean that Chrom and Olivia is canon, it just means that there is a specific Olivia where it's canon, and I see that happening, personally. As Awakening gets older, I think they're going to be less afraid to touch the pairings there, like they have already implied and used other ones from older games. And we've already seen in Fire Emblem Fates and in Fire Emblem Heroes, Inigo says lines and references lines that only exist in Lucina's sibling support. So they've been using Inigo to represent Lucina's sibling already, and even though he doesn't have the blue hair and whatever, like I don't think it has to be a fight or a war. Like, I think that in a vacuum this can exist, and IS will make it very clear that not every Chrom married every Olivia and whatever. I feel like I just need a qualifier for that for Awakening specifically. Like, I always give that qualifier, but Awakening I know is a lot more sensitive to people because it was a lot of people's first Fire Emblem game. And with Chrom being my favorite character, I can admit that Awakening is a little more sensitive to me as well, so I just have to really make it clear right there that, yes, that won't make it canon for every single version of Chrom or Olivia or gameplay of Awakening or anything like that. So for Fire Emblem 14, because I really can't separate the two, so you could say this is Conquest and Birthright. The two younger siblings, or the two younger brothers in Fire Emblem Fates, Leo and Takumi, feel like they should get Ascendant Heroes for their post-game roles. For Takumi, he's high up in the courts, and for Leo, he's the king now. Both of them have legendary weapons that help form the Omega Yato, but also they're not exactly the main characters of Fates, so I don't know if they would get legendary heroes, but they could definitely get Ascendant Heroes, and until I know, and for now, there's other people that I think could get legendary before them that haven't yet, so for that reason, I feel like I'd feel more comfortable pulling them back into the Ascendant Hero category. Fire Emblem Three Houses is a much harder one, because I don't know if time skips are going to start becoming regular banners, or if that's going to be Ascendant and Legendary focused, but if it's Ascendant, then how are they going to give all four? Because one would be Ascendant, but then the three characters following, would they just be students still, with one of them being time skip, or would it be Knights of Saros with an Ascendant student? So that really doesn't quite make sense to me, personally. So for now, what I'm doing with the Ascendant Heroes in Three Houses is that I'd stick it on retainers, or students who have a specific role. I mean, Dedue's kind of a retainer, but Felix is more popular, and he's the shield of the king. Hilda's really popular and is kind of Claude's retainer, but Lawrence also fights for that title. Ferdinand and Hubert kind of fight for the title, with Hubert being the actual retainer and spy master, but Ferdinand being so competitive and fighting for the role of emperor, but only because he thinks that'll bring out the best in Edelgard. I think they're the ones, as far as students go, that have that place the most, but it's all such a difficult circle for me. But what I landed on, I think, is that Yuri's the House Lord of Fire Emblem Three Houses DLC's campaign and the Ashen Wolves and so on. So maybe he'd get a legendary hero, but legendary heroes are going to need Shez and That's probably it for now. So I really don't know. I mean, Three Houses already has so many legendaries, and they're probably getting 2 more, and then another mythic. So, for now, I'm thinking Yuri won't be legendary, but he will instead be an Ascendant hero. It will be post-game. It will be his equivalent to legendary. He doesn't have a specific class, like how there's the Lord, Great Lord, and High Lord, or for Edelgard, there's Lord, Armored Lord, and Flame Emperor, I believe. And then for Claude, it's Lord. Not Wyvern Lord, because Wyvern Lord is everyone's basic class. Demetrius is so much easier to remember because he just gets the title Lord over and over. Like Demetrius got Lord, High Lord, Great Lord, and then Edelgard's got Lord, and then Flame Emperor and Empress, I believe, or Emperor. Armored Lord. I think she's the Armored Lord. Yeah, because Demetrius the Great Lord, she's the Armored Lord, and then Claude is the Barbossa. He goes from Lord to not Wyvern Lord, because it's Wyvern Knight and Wyvern Lord for everyone. He instead gets like Wyvern Master and then Barbossa or something like that, which is a cool title, but it just doesn't fall in line with the other. It really should have been Wyvern Lord for him. Anyway, Yuri doesn't have his own like exclusive class. Trickster is the most fitting to him. It's kind of designed for him, but everyone can have it, and he doesn't have a Yuri specific class. So he could get 2 separate time skip ults, one being his regular Trickster and one being an Ascendant, brand new post Abyss one where he's on a horse, because he's just a guy that looks like he would be amazing on a horse. Alright, and so to close it off, Tokyo Mirage Sessions Ascendant Hero. Itsuki and Tsubasa should get legendary heroes at some point, but because they barely give any content to TMS, I doubt we're getting 1 legendary, much less 2. So my guess would have to be Itsuki coming in as an Ascendant hero with Chrom as his sword. But Chrom in the background is the Great Lord design. He's got the silver armor and the white feathers to reference Chrom's silver armor and orange glowing sword. And then Itsuki's outfit is based off of Marth, and he's got his hair spiked up and glowing blue, as opposed to the Itsuki in his base outfit or even his main game outfit. That late in-game Marth boss fight. I think we might get Ascendant Itsuki looking like that, and I would be ecstatic. Yeah, because I think the only real way to get them to make Tokyo Mirage Sessions units is to really force them into it, and we tried our best with CYL. We got 3 characters in the top 20 of each gender. Well, we got 3 characters on the billboards, so we'll see if that does anything. But if it did, then Ascendant Itsuki is my biggest guess for who that would be. But alright, thank you for doing that and chatting about that with me. It has been great, and until the next time I see you.